A little girl asked, "Why is my mom's photo in your house?" I froze. I didn't know she even knew my wife. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. 3 years after Elena died, I still made coffee for two. I'd catch myself sometimes, standing at the counter with 2 mugs in my hands, the morning light slanting through the kitchen window the same way it always had. Then I'd remember. I'd pour 1 cup back into the pot and carry the other to the table, alone. The house was too quiet. That's what people said when they visited, which wasn't often anymore. "Don't you get lonely, David?" my sister would ask, her voice careful, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "Maybe you should think about moving, starting fresh somewhere new." But I couldn't leave. Elena was in every corner of this house. Her books still lined the shelves in the study. Her favorite sweater hung in the closet, smelling faintly of the lavender perfume she wore. Her photograph, the one from our anniversary trip to the coast, sat on the mantelpiece, her smile frozen in that perfect moment before everything fell apart. I talked to her sometimes. Not out loud, not really. But I'd glance at the photo and think the things I would have said if she were still here. "The roses are blooming again. Your mother called. I'm thinking of repainting the bedroom, but I can't remember which shade of blue you liked. People called it unhealthy. I called it survival." It was a Tuesday in April when everything changed. I was trimming the hedges in the front yard, my hands dirty with soil, when my neighbor Sarah came rushing over. She lived 3 houses down with her daughter, a little girl I'd seen playing in the yard but never really spoken to. "David, I'm so sorry to ask," Sarah said, breathless, car keys jangling in her hand. "I just got a call from the hospital. My mother fell and broke her hip. I need to drive to Portland right now and the babysitter canceled last minute. Could you possibly watch Emma for a couple hours? I know it's sudden, but I'm desperate." I hesitated. I wasn't good with children. I'd never been. Elena had wanted kids, but it never happened. And after she died, the thought of being around children made something inside me ache. But Sarah looked panicked, and I'd always been taught to help neighbors in need. "Of course," I heard myself say. "Take your time. I'll keep her safe." Sarah's relief was visible. She called for Emma, who came skipping over a small girl with dark curls and curious eyes, maybe 6 or 7 years old. She wore a pink dress with grass stains on the knees. "Emma, this is Mr. Reeves. You're going to stay with him for a little while, okay? Be good." Emma looked up at me with those wide, assessing eyes that children have. "Okay, Mama." Sarah hugged her daughter, whispered something in her ear, and then she was gone, her car disappearing down the street in a cloud of urgency. I looked down at Emma. She looked up at me. "Well," I said, "would you like to come inside? I have juice boxes." She nodded solemnly and took my hand. Her fingers were small and sticky. The house felt different with a child in it. Louder somehow, even though Emma was quiet. She stood in the entryway, looking around with the intense curiosity of someone exploring a new world. "You have a lot of books," she observed, peering into the study. "My wife liked to read. Where is she?" The question was innocent, matter-of-fact in the way children's questions often are. No awareness of the minefield she'd just walked into. "She passed away," I said. "A few years ago." "Oh." Emma considered this. "My dad passed away too, before I was born." "I'm sorry to hear that." She shrugged, already moving on, her attention caught by something else. She wandered into the living room, her shoes making soft sounds on the hardwood floor. I followed her, watching as she examined everything with that child's eye for detail. She paused at the bookshelf, ran her fingers along the spines, stopped at the piano, pressed one key, listened to the note fade. And then she saw the photograph. Emma walked to the mantelpiece, standing on her tiptoes to see it better. She stared at it for a long moment, her small face scrunched in concentration. Then she turned to me. Why is my mom's photo in your house? The world tilted. I must have misheard. I walked closer, my heart suddenly beating too fast. What did you say? That's my mom. She pointed at Elena's photograph. Why do you have her picture? I looked at the photo. At Elena, smiling in the sunlight, her hair blowing in the ocean breeze. Then I looked at Emma's small, certain face. Sweetheart, that's not your mom. That's my wife. Elena. No, Emma said, with the absolute confidence only children possess. That's my mom. Her name is Elena too. The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. Your mother's name is Elena? Uh-huh. Elena Marie. Elena Marie. Elena Marie Reeves. My wife. But that was impossible. Emma's mother was Sarah's daughter. Sarah lived down the street with Emma, just the two of them. There was no Elena. Emma, I said slowly, carefully. Your mother is Sarah, right? The woman who just dropped you off? Emma laughed, the sound bright and uncomplicated. No, silly. Sarah is my aunt. My mom died when I was a baby. Everything in the room became very sharp and very clear. The dust particles floating in the afternoon light. The ticking of the clock on the wall. The way Emma's eyes, dark, like Elena's had been, looked at me with innocent confusion. Your mother died? Yes. I was only 1. I don't remember her. But Aunt Sarah talks about her all the time, and we have lots of pictures. She looked back at the photograph. That's definitely her. She's wearing the same necklace she has in all our pictures. See? The little bird? I looked at the photograph. At the silver necklace around Elena's throat, the tiny bird pendant I'd given her for our first anniversary. The one she'd worn every single day until she died. My mouth was dry. What year? When did your mother die? Emma scrunched up her face, thinking. Aunt Sarah says it was November 2019, right before Thanksgiving. November 2019. Elena died in March 2022. This didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Emma, can you tell me your mother's full name, her last name? Elena Marie Hartley, same as mine. I'm Emma Rose Hartley. Not Reeves. Hartley. And do you have a picture of her on your phone or... Aunt Sarah has lots, in albums at home. I can show you later if you want. I needed to sit down. My legs felt weak. I lowered myself onto the couch, my mind racing. Elena Marie. November 2019. A daughter. A different last name. Mr. Reeves, are you okay? I looked at Emma's worried face. Yes, I'm fine, just surprised. Your mother looks very much like my wife. Emma climbed onto the couch beside me. Maybe they were twins. My friend Katie has a twin. They look exactly the same. Maybe, I said, but I knew it wasn't true. Elena had no siblings. She'd told me that 100 times. She was an only child, born to parents who died when she was young, raised by an aunt in Ohio who passed away years before I met her. That was the story. The story she'd told me. The story I'd believed for 15 years of marriage. But looking at this little girl beside me, with Elena's eyes and Elena's smile, I began to wonder if I'd known my wife at all. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I made Emma a snack. We watched a cartoon on television. She colored in a book she'd brought in her backpack. Through it all, I felt like I was watching from outside myself, observing this strange scene from a great distance. When Sarah finally returned, apologizing profusely for being gone so long, I barely heard her. I watched as Emma hugged her aunt goodbye, then ran to the car. Thank you so much, David, Sarah was saying. I owe you one. Mom's going to be okay, thank goodness. Just a clean break. She'll be in the hospital for a few days, but... Sarah, I interrupted her, my voice rough, can I ask you something? She paused, reading something in my expression. Of course. Emma mentioned her mother. Elena? Sarah's face changed. Closed off, like a door slamming shut. What about her? She said, she saw a photograph inside, of my wife. and she thought it was her mother. Sarah was very still. That's impossible. That's what I thought. But she was very sure. She even knew about the necklace in the photo, the bird pendant. Sarah's face had gone pale. Can I see the photo? I led her inside. We stood in front of the mantelpiece looking at Elena's smiling face. Sarah didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, when did your wife die, David? March 2022. And her name was Elena Marie? Yes, Elena Marie Reeves. Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. I need to tell you something, but not here. Not with Emma waiting. Can you come by tomorrow, after she's at school? Sarah, what's going on? Tomorrow, she said firmly. Please. And then she was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind turning over every conversation I'd ever had with Elena. Every story she'd told me about her past. Every detail I'd taken for granted. She'd said she was from Ohio, that she'd moved to Seattle for college and never left, that she had no family, no one but me. But what if that was a lie? What if everything was a lie? At 3 a.m, I got up and went to the study. I pulled out the boxes I'd stored away after Elena died. Boxes full of documents, photographs, memories I hadn't been able to look at since the funeral. I started with the wedding photos. Elena in her white dress, me in my suit, both of us young and smiling. Her side of the church had been nearly empty. Just a few friends from work, a distant cousin she barely knew. I'm sorry there aren't more people, she'd whispered to me before we walked down the aisle. It's always been just me. I'd kissed her forehead and told her she was all I needed. I moved on to other photos, vacations, holidays, ordinary days. Elena baking cookies in the kitchen, Elena reading on the porch, Elena sleeping on a Sunday morning, her hair spread across the pillow. In every photo, she wore the bird necklace. I found our marriage certificate. Elena Marie Torres, her maiden name, she'd said, marrying David James Reeves on June 14, 2008. Torres, not Hartley. But maybe she'd changed her name before we met. Maybe Hartley was a previous marriage I didn't know about. I kept searching. I found her passport, issued 3 months before we met. Elena Marie Torres. Born April 3, 1982, in Cleveland, Ohio. I found her social security card, her driver's license, her medical records. Everything said Elena Marie Torres, later Elena Marie Reeves. Nothing said Hartley. By dawn, I was surrounded by papers, my eyes burning from lack of sleep, no closer to understanding. Sarah's house was smaller than mine, neat and carefully maintained. She answered the door in jeans and a sweater, her face drawn. Coffee? She offered. Please. We sat at her kitchen table, mugs between us, the silence heavy. I need you to understand something, Sarah finally said. I loved my sister. More than anything in this world. What happened to her? What she did? It doesn't change that. Your sister was Elena? Sarah nodded. Elena Marie Hartley. She was 3 years older than me. We grew up in Portland, not Ohio. Our parents are still alive. They live in Bend now. The room felt like it was spinning. Elena told me she was an only child, that her parents were dead. I know. She told a lot of people a lot of things. Sarah wrapped her hands around her mug. Elena had problems, David. Mental health problems. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when she was 19, and she refused treatment most of her life. She had this pattern of reinventing herself, creating new identities, starting over whenever things got complicated. What do you mean? Sarah took a breath. In 2006, Elena got pregnant. The father was her boyfriend at the time, a guy named Marcus, who wanted nothing to do with the baby. Elena decided to keep it. Emma was born in February 2007. Beautiful, healthy baby girl. I felt cold. Emma is 17? Yes, not 6 or 7. She has a growth hormone deficiency. She looks much younger than she is, but she's in 11th grade now. My mind reeled. The little girl with the sticky hands and innocent questions was 17 years old. For the first year, Elena tried, Sarah continued. She really did. But motherhood was hard for her. She struggled with postpartum depression, and with her disorder, she couldn't maintain stability. She'd have these episodes where she'd disappear for days at a time. I was living with her then, helping with Emma, but I was only 22. I didn't know what to do. What happened? In October 2008, Elena left. She took nothing but some clothes and her car. She left Emma with me, left a note saying she couldn't do it anymore, that she needed to start fresh, that she'd come back when she was better. October 2008, 2 months after Elena and I got married. She never came back, Sarah said quietly. Not to see Emma, not to call, nothing. I tried to find her. I hired a private investigator. I filed missing person reports. But she'd changed her name. I found out later she used her grandmother's maiden name, Torres, and she'd moved to Seattle. She'd created a whole new life, a life where she had no family, no past, no daughter waiting for her in Portland. I couldn't breathe. She never told me. In 15 years, she never mentioned any of this. I don't think she could, Sarah said. I think in her mind, she'd become someone else entirely. Elena Torres, the woman with no history. That's who you married. The person she wanted to be. But the dates don't match. Emma said Elena died in November 2019. My wife died in March 2022. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. David, I need to show you something. She stood and walked to a drawer, pulling out a worn folder. She handed it to me. Inside was a death certificate. Elena Marie Hartley. Born April 3, 1982. Died November 17, 2019. Cause of death, motor vehicle accident. I stared at the paper, at the name, at the date. This is a fake, I said. No, it's real. But Elena died in 2022. I was there. I held her hand in the hospital. I planned her funeral. I buried her. Sarah's voice was gentle. Did you ever see her body, David? The question hit me like a fist. Elena had been in a car accident. A bad one. She'd been alone, driving home from work on a rainy evening. By the time the ambulance got there, she was barely alive. They'd rushed her to the hospital, but she'd died 2 hours later. I'd been there. I'd sat in the waiting room, numb with shock, while the doctors tried to save her. And when it was over, they'd told me she was gone, but they'd discouraged me from seeing her. The injuries are severe, the doctor had said. You don't want to remember her that way. And I'd listened. I'd let them prepare her body for a closed casket funeral. I'd trusted that the person in that casket was my wife. There was a funeral, I said weakly. A burial. Her grave is at Evergreen Cemetery. I visited. I believe you, Sarah said. But David, did you ever see her face? After the accident? In the casket? I hadn't. Sarah pulled out another document. A police report from Portland, dated November 17, 2019. Elena Marie Hartley had been driving on Highway 26 when she'd lost control of her vehicle. The car had gone off the road and down an embankment. She'd died at the scene. They'd identified her through her driver's license and dental records. I don't understand, I whispered. 6 months after Elena left, I got a letter from her, Sarah said. No return address. She said she was okay, that she had a new life, a new name, that it was better this way, that Emma would be better off without her. I kept that letter. I showed it to Emma when she was old enough to understand. I told her that her mother loved her but was sick, that she'd made a choice and we had to respect it. And then, in 2019, Elena called me. It was the first time I'd heard her voice in 11 years. She was crying. She said she'd been in Seattle, living under a false name, but things were falling apart. She'd gotten into trouble, I don't know what kind. She said she needed to disappear again. Completely. That there were people looking for her. Sarah's voice broke. She asked me for a favor. She asked me to declare her dead. What? She had a plan. She said she knew someone who could help her fake her death. Someone in Portland who owed her a favor. She'd stage an accident, they'd falsify the records, and Elena Hartley would be gone forever. She could start over one more time, become someone new. And you agreed to this? No, God, no. I begged her to come home, to get help, to be a mother to her daughter. But she wouldn't listen. She said it was already done. That in a few days, I'd get the call. And I did. Sarah wiped her eyes. November 17th, 2019, the police showed up at my door. They said Elena had died in a car accident. They asked me to identify the body. When I got to the morgue, it was her. It was really her, David. Her face, her hands, her necklace, that bird necklace she always wore. Everything. But if it was real, I thought it was real, Sarah interrupted. I planned a funeral. I buried her. I grieved. I helped Emma grieve. For 2 years, I believed my sister was dead. And then, in January 2022, I got an email from Elena. She said she was sorry, that the fake death had gone wrong, become real somehow, that she'd tried to disappear but ended up actually dying. She was writing from beyond, she said. One last goodbye. Sarah laughed bitterly. I thought I was going insane. That grief had broken me. But the email had details only Elena would know. Things about our childhood, about Emma. And she included a photo. Her standing in front of a house, alive. Your house, I said quietly. Yes, my house. Taken from the street. She'd come to Seattle, she was watching us. And then the email account disappeared. I tried to respond, but it bounced back. I hired another investigator, but he found nothing. 2 months later, in March, I got another call. A hospital in Seattle. They said a woman had died in their emergency room. Car accident. No ID, but they'd found my phone number and her belongings. Could I come identify her? Sarah's voice was hollow. I went. And it was Elena. Really, truly dead this time. The same face I'd seen in the Portland morgue 3 years earlier. The same bird necklace. But this time, there was no doubt. She was gone. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. I didn't know what to do, Sarah continued. I couldn't tell Emma that her mother had died again. Once was traumatic enough, so I said nothing. I arranged for the hospital to handle the body. Anonymous burial. No funeral. I tried to forget. And then Emma saw the photograph in your house. Yes. We sat in silence. Finally, I found my voice. Who was buried in Portland? In Elena's grave? I don't know. I've asked myself that question 1,000 times. Maybe no one. Maybe the whole thing was staged. Maybe she bribed someone at the morgue to show me a body that looked enough like her. I don't know. And who's buried at Evergreen Cemetery? In my wife's grave? Sarah looked at me with infinite sadness. Elena. The real Elena. Your wife, my sister. She died in March 2022 and you buried her. That much is true. But everything else? Everything else was a lie she told herself. A lie she told us. A lie she lived until it killed her. I visited the cemetery that afternoon. Elena's grave was in the northwest corner, beneath a maple tree. The headstone was simple. Elena Marie Reeves. Beloved wife. 1982-2022. I stood there for a long time, looking at the carved letters. Beloved wife. But whose wife had I really been? Elena Torres, the woman I'd married, had been a fiction. A character she'd created, a role she'd played. The real Elena Hartley had been someone else entirely. A mother who'd abandoned her daughter. A woman with a mental illness she'd refused to treat. A person who'd faked her own death and then died for real 3 years later. I'd loved a ghost. Why? I said to the headstone. Why couldn't you just tell me the truth? The stone had no answer. I thought about Emma. About the little girl, no, the young woman who'd spent 17 years without a mother. Who'd been told her mother died when she was a baby, then told she was alive, then told she was dead again. What kind of damage had that done? And what was my responsibility now? To tell Emma the truth. To explain that the woman in my photograph was both her mother and a stranger. Or to let the dead rest. I made my decision that evening. I called Sarah and asked if I could speak with Emma. Really speak with her, not as the neighbor who'd babysat for an afternoon, but as someone who'd known her mother. Sarah was quiet for a long time. She's fragile, David. This whole thing. Finding out her mother had a whole other life, a husband, a house 3 miles away. It's destroying her. I know, but I think she deserves the truth. All of it. And what truth is that? That her mother loved her, even if she couldn't show it, even if she made terrible choices. Elena kept that photograph on our mantelpiece for 14 years. Every day, I'd see her looking at it. Sometimes I'd catch her touching the bird necklace, just holding it. I always thought she was remembering her past, the family she'd lost. But maybe she was thinking of Emma. Yes, Sarah sighed. Come over tomorrow night. I'll make dinner. We'll talk. Emma was different when I saw her the next day. Older somehow. She sat at the dinner table with her aunt, her face serious. No sign of the playful child who'd colored in my living room. Hi, Mr. Reeves, she said quietly. Emma, thank you for seeing me. Sarah served pasta and salad. We ate mostly in silence, the weight of unspoken things filling the room. Finally, Emma put down her fork. Aunt Sarah told me everything, about how my mom had another life, about how she married you and never told you about me. Yes. Did you love her? The question was direct, unflinching. Very much, I said. More than I've loved anyone. Even though she lied to you? I didn't know she was lying. I thought she was telling me the truth. Emma looked down at her plate. She lied to me too. She left me and never came back. Aunt Sarah says she was sick, that she couldn't help it, but I don't know if I believe that. I think she just didn't want me. That's not true, I said. Emma, I don't know why your mother made the choices she did. I don't know why she couldn't be the parent you deserved. But I saw her every day for 15 years, and I saw someone who was carrying something heavy, something she couldn't talk about. I think she was running from pain, and she didn't know how to stop. Did she ever mention me? I hesitated. Thought about lying, about making this easier. But Emma deserved honesty. No, she never did. But I don't think that means she forgot you. I think it means she couldn't bear to remember. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I have so many questions about what she was like, what she did every day, what made her laugh, whether she was happy. She liked mystery novels, I said, and terrible reality TV. She always burned toast but made incredible pancakes. She sang in the shower, off-key. She cried at commercials with dogs in them. She had a terrible sense of direction but refused to use GPS. She was stubborn and funny and complicated and kind. I pulled something from my pocket. The bird necklace. I'd taken it from Elena's jewelry box that morning. She wore this every single day, I said, placing it on the table. She never told me where it came from. I gave her other jewelry over the years, nicer pieces, but she always came back to this one. I think maybe it was a gift from someone important. Someone she couldn't forget. Emma picked up the necklace with trembling fingers. My dad gave it to her. When she was pregnant with me. Aunt Sarah told me the story. He said Elena was going to fly away from him, so he wanted to give her a bird to remember him by. She never took it off, I said. In 15 years, not once. Emma clasped the necklace around her neck. It settled against her collarbone, the tiny silver bird catching the light. Can I see the photos? She asked. The ones in your house? Of her? Of course, all of them. You can have copies if you want. I'd like that. Sarah reached over and squeezed her niece's hand. Are you okay, sweetheart? Emma nodded. She looked at me. Thank you, Mr. Reeves, for loving my mom, even when she couldn't love herself. Over the following weeks, Emma came to visit several times. I showed her photographs, told her stories, answered her questions as best I could. We pieced together a portrait of Elena that neither of us had fully known. A woman who'd been both more and less than either of us had believed. Sarah and I became friends, bonded by shared loss and complicated grief. We talked about Elena often, about the choices she'd made and the damage she'd left behind. Do you hate her? Sarah asked me once. For lying to you? I thought about it, really thought. No, I said finally. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I don't hate her. She was ill. and she did the best she could with the tools she had. It just wasn't enough. That's generous. Or maybe it's just honest. I loved the person she was with me. That person was real, even if her past was hidden. The years we had together mattered. They still matter. Emma graduated high school that spring. I went to the ceremony, sat with Sarah, watched this young woman cross the stage and accept her diploma. Afterward, Emma found me in the crowd. She was wearing the bird necklace. "I'm going to college in the fall," she said. "Aunt Sarah's been saving up. I'm thinking of majoring in psychology. Maybe I can help people like my mom, people who are running from themselves." "She'd be proud of you," I said. Emma smiled, sad but genuine. "Maybe, or maybe she wouldn't recognize me. I don't know which would be worse." "She'd recognize you," I said. "You have her eyes, and her determination, and her kindness when she could show it." "Thank you for not hating her," Emma said quietly. "And thank you for not hating me." "How could I hate you? You're the best part of her, the part that survived." "I still live in the house. I still keep Elena's photograph on the mantelpiece, but I've added another one beside it. A picture Emma gave me from her childhood Elena, young and smiling, holding a baby. It was taken a week after Emma was born, before the postpartum depression set in, before the running started. In that photo, Elena looks happy. Genuinely, uncomplicated happy. Like she knew, in that moment, exactly who she was and where she belonged. I like to think that version of Elena existed, that she wasn't just the sum of her lies and her illness and her choices, that somewhere, in the space between who she was and who she pretended to be, there was a real person who loved as well as she could. I talk to both photographs now. To the Elena who was my wife and to the Elena who was Emma's mother. They're the same woman, but they're different too. And maybe that's okay. Maybe people are always more than one thing. Maybe we're all running from something, hiding parts of ourselves, creating the person we wish we could be. Elena just took it further than most. On the anniversary of her death, the real one, March 2022. Emma and Sarah and I visit the cemetery together. We bring flowers. We stand together at her grave. Emma always reads something, a poem, a letter, something she's written. This year, she read, "To the mother I never knew and the mother who never left. You were complicated and human and flawed. You made terrible choices. You hurt people who loved you. But you were also funny and kind and trying, in your own broken way, to survive. I wish you'd chosen differently. I wish you'd stayed. But I understand why you couldn't. And I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. I deserve peace. So here it is, Mom. I love you, I miss you, and I release you. Fly away now. You're finally free." We cried together, the three of us. For Elena, for ourselves, for all the years we'd lost to her secrets. And then we went home. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm lying in bed and the house is quiet, I think about that moment when Emma first walked into my living room. That innocent question that shattered everything. "Why is my mom's photo in your house?" I wish I could go back and warn myself. Tell that version of me that the answer would break him, that the truth would reshape everything he thought he knew about love and trust and the person he'd spent 15 years beside. But I wouldn't change it, because now I know. Now Emma knows. And the truth, as painful as it is better than the comfortable lie I'd been living. Elena left me a mystery instead of a life together. She left Emma an absence instead of a mother. But in that mystery, in that absence, we found each other. And maybe that's her final gift, bringing together two people who loved her, in different ways, and helping us see the whole truth of who she was. She was Elena Marie Hartley, the mother who couldn't stay. She was Elena Marie Reeves, the wife who couldn't reveal. She was Elena Marie Torres, the woman who never existed. And she was all of them at once, broken and beautiful and human and gone. I miss her. I'll always miss her. But I don't miss the lie anymore. I miss the truth I never got to know.